This is Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 73 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And today our guest is Charell Starr, who's the voice of Not Just a Girl in a Dress, a lifestyle blog that shares inspiring stories and trending news that helps individuals define their own version of success. And as part of our Driver's Ed series, Charell is going to be talking about how to successfully secure press and media coverage. So basically, we're going to be talking about how to be your own publicist. Some of the things that we discuss include the difference between public relations and marketing, the 4 questions to ask to know if you're ready for publicity, how to get press without a publicist, how to get media contact information, big pitching no-nos, PR lessons that Charell learned while working at top PR agencies, and how to leverage social media to build your community. So there's a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about in today's episode, so be prepared. One of the things that I did just to give you guys an extra resource was I made an episode worksheet that highlights some of the key points that Charell brings out in this episode. So if you want to download that worksheet, all you have to do is go to www.dreamsanddrive.com/free. So that's just dreamsanddrive.com/free, or you can also get it on our show notes page by going to dreamsanddrive.com and clicking on episode 73. Hope that you guys enjoy this episode. One note, make sure that you are following us on social at Dreams and Drive and using the hashtag Dreams and Drive to engage with us throughout the week. All right, let's get into the episode. Hi, Charell. Welcome to Dreams and Drive. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Hey, Raina. I am so excited to chat with you. Thank you so much for having me on.
I know. I think we met about a year ago at the Handbag Awards, the judges event or something they had there, right? That's how we...
Yeah. That was a fun event, judging handbags, deciding what's going to be the next it bag. That was a lot of fun.
And now we're here on Dreams and Drive. Who knew what a difference a year could make, right?
Exactly. And the connections that you make, we're going to get into it in a little bit, but see, just those small connections can go really far.
So let's get started. I love asking our guests to take a step back and think about their childhood. So Charell, tell me what inspired you as a child. If I had to say, what was Charell like as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, what would you say?
What I would say was, as a child, because my childhood was a little different. I grew up in and out of foster care and so in and out of foster homes. So I would say as a child, I was very, responsible. I was very focused. I was probably, because I always had to be very responsible for my younger sister. And so I feel that I've always been an adult, even when I was a child. I was one of those kids because, I had to take care of another person. And so, looking back on that, I would say, I was just really responsible. Adults around me probably thought I was too grown, because I was used to like teaching things to my little sister and taking care of her and making her dinner and getting her to school. So I had to be responsible. So I've always been a very responsible, focused, sort of driven type of person.
How much older are you than your sister?
So I am 5 years older than my sister. Okay, so when I was 7, she was 2.
Okay. So you had to take care of her from that age?
Yeah. So since she was a baby, pretty much, I was looking over her.
Okay, so do you remember what your dreams were like back then? Although you were very responsible and very focused, what did the young Charell want to be when she was an adult?
Young Charell wanting nothing more than to be Janet Jackson. Love Janet. Everything about her. Like if Janet was on TV, I was tuned in. My eyes would just be on it. If she came on the radio, I wanted to be like Janet Jackson. She was my idol when I was a little girl. I don't know what attracted me to her at such a young age, but I was all about Janet's life.
That is so interesting.
Yes, I loved her. And too bad I can't sing, or I would have pursued a career in music, but I cannot sing a lick, so that was not going to be my path. But I think doing something in sort of the limelight or just sort of in front of people, I think that's what just always attracted me to PR and then now to blogging and journalism is sort of being able to tell a story and sort of, have this personality personality and share my personality, but I think it comes from me loving Janet when I was a little kid.
No, I'm going to definitely have to write that down, because I think that the theme of being in the limelight, that theme of being a star and kind of, it's funny, Charell Star, right?
Exactly.
I just thought about that.
It was always meant to be.
It was. So you went to Boston University, right?
I did. I went to BU and I studied communications.
All right. So in those college days, were you, how did those dreams of wanting to be a star kind of morph into what you actually studied in college?
I honestly have to say I went to college knowing that I was going to take up communications. I selected Boston University because they had one of the best PR and comms program in the nation. And so I would say I was thinking about this even in high school. I went to a boarding school. I got a scholarship to go to a boarding school when I was in middle school. So I spent 4 years in Arizona on this working cattle ranch called the Orem School. And so it was really, really tiny. It was about 130 people for the entire school. That includes people who work there. So a really, really tiny environment. And so going from like living in New York City to this really tiny boarding school, I was like, I got to get back to the city. I want to go to a place like Boston, and BU had a really good comms program. And so I was drawn to that. So I sort of knew the type of path I wanted to be on. I had also done an internship with the Queen Latifah show. Right before my senior year at the end of my senior year of high school, leading into college. And so that sort of solidified me wanting to work in PR, because I got to help in the PR department for them and sort of see what it was really about. And so I was like, yeah, I chose the right school. This is the field I want to move into. It just sort of, it was all connected for me.
Wow. When you said that you went to Arizona for boarding school, I wish you could have seen my face. I was like, what? Really?
Yes.
What's in Arizona?
What's
New
in
York to Arizona.
Me and like 100 other Black people. That's what's Arizona.
Wait, it was an all-Black boarding school?
No. I just meant like for the entire population.
Okay. I was gonna say, wow, that's even more outstanding. But what program were you a part of?
For boarding school?
Yeah, you said you got into a program.
Yeah, I got a scholarship, and so it was the Mobile Pegasus Scholarship. So Mobile, like the gas company. Mm-hmm. I received a academic scholarship, and so every year, at least when I was going there, there would be about 10 scholars, and so 5 would come from California, 5 would come from New York for academics, and so I received the scholarship the year I attended, or the 4 years I attended. And so that's what brought me to, or sent me to Arizona, which was very, very different than growing up in New York City. I had never seen a horse in my life, or cattle. There was just, all these trees and the dust, and literally it's a working cattle ranch. So you come to school and there are cattle all over campus, and you're like, oh, this is where beef comes from.
What do you think was the biggest lesson you learned during those 4 years of high school?
The biggest lesson I probably learned in high school, especially going to a school like that, where, just a lot of culture shock, a lot of, learning about other people. But I think I learned a lot about myself and what I wanted out of life. Like I was already on a path to it, but again, I grew up bouncing around foster homes. And so to actually see, a nuclear family with like a mom and dad, and they come to pick up their kid on the weekend, to actually go and stay. I met some of the most incredible people. Some of them are still my friends to this day from high school. But, to be invited over to someone's house and see like a family having dinner together, it sort of gave me this perspective that I didn't grow up with, and I'm so thankful for more than anything else. Like, yeah, I've made a lot of connections that have helped me along the way, but just being able to see that and sort of not only just see that, but experience that and feel like I was a part of it. That was the biggest difference. That was my biggest lesson.
And I think that's a good lesson to learn, especially as you're going into college, where you will start laying the foundation for how you want your life to look, when you're actually out there in the real world. So I think that's really important. So let's talk about life after college, right? So You got your communications degree. What was the first job post-college?
Oh, so my first job post-college, I actually worked in a nonprofit, and I did not do PR at all. It was right after the bubble burst, and so there was just like no one was really hiring, but I got my foot in the door at this nonprofit. And so literally I was like, I want to do PR, but I helped them with volunteers. So I would train volunteers on K through 12 literacy and how to teach kids about financial readiness. But essentially every day I'd come in and I'd try to figure out different ways to get my boss to let me do a little bit of PR here and there. To the point where after about 6 months, probably 50% of my time was doing PR for the organization.
Wow.
Because every day I'd come in and I'm like, hey, I got through all of my volunteer checklists. I wanted to reach out to this media outlet and see if they might be interested in covering, the event we're going to have next week. And so no one had been doing that for them in the local office. And so the more and more I did it, the more they let me do it, to the point where it became part of my responsibility. So I sort of pushed my way into working in PR officially.
And when did you get the idea to start your blog, Not Just a Girl in a Dress? Did that come later, or was that, during your early years post-college?
No, it came later. So I've actually had a 13-year career in PR and events. Mm-hmm. And so I started my blog about 4 years ago. And really the inspiration for it was just me wanting to talk about and share the things that I'm really passionate about, but in a way that could be inspiring and celebratory for other individuals. Like, my whole thing with my site is, again, I write about things I love, but it's how do I inspire others to find their own version of success? I feel like there's just so much that plays a part in what makes people, and especially women, feel happy and feel accomplished. And I just wanted to start a site that really represented all of those areas. So, I cover technology, I cover fashion, I cover beauty, I cover business, I cover entrepreneurship and culture. And it's all really about those areas where people can sort of pull success and motivation from.
Mm-hmm. So you definitely, I feel like I'm because I know you and I know your background, I want to make sure that I'm giving the listeners an overview of who you are. But what we're really going to do today, as you guys know, this is our Driver's Ed series, and we're talking all about how to get press and publicity for your brand. And Charell is an expert when it comes to this area. You've worked at some top agencies such as Taylor, Uniworld, PMK, BNC, right? You've learned so much, I can imagine, by working at these really top tier PR agencies. So let's start off with this question, Charell. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between press and marketing? So I think that sometimes people sometimes confuse the two, right? And what are the advantages of press over marketing?
Well, I would say, so people do get the two confused, and I know why people get the two confused, because PR is a part of marketing. Public relations is all about building awareness and sort of telling a story. And so that fits into, if you remember college, the marketing wheel. That's a part of the marketing wheel, actually building awareness. But marketing itself, in the grand scheme of things, is about sales. You're doing advertising to sell products. PR is different because you're doing this outreach to media, to influencers, to bloggers, to journalists, to generate awareness. And that might lead to sales, but that is not the direct goal that you're hoping to achieve by working with a publicist or working with a PR agency. You're hoping to achieve bigger awareness for your brand or product.
So why would a creative or lifestyle entrepreneur, someone who's running their own small business or brand, why do they need press, or why should they invest in trying to get press for their brand? I know that, if you're a brand, if you are a individual and you are looking to grow your business, your company, it might be time it could be utilizing a publicist or PR person might be a smart move. And I use the word might because it's not for everyone. One of the things I always say is you want to make sure that you are at the right stage in your business and have the right messaging ready so that your publicist, if you hire a publicist, or if you take on the role as publicist for your business, which you might have to do as an entrepreneur, you got to have like 20 different balls in the air sometimes, but that you are really considering and have had taken into consideration, is your brand or service unique? Is it a story that media will want to listen to? Is it actually new and newsworthy?
does your brand, does your company have the potential to be profitable? Some people start businesses as a hobby and aren't actually looking at the bottom line and ensuring that they're profitable, and haven't actually checked all those boxes to ensure that they will be profitable one day. You might want to do that before you go out and grab a publicist. So there's so many things that you should be doing before you do that. But do I think companies and individuals and startups should look at a publicist? Totally. But I think you have to check all those boxes first.
Definitely. And, as you said before, especially in the beginning, you may not even have the funds to actually hire one. So learning how to do publicity yourself and and I think what I want to focus on is the idea of what are some small things that you as a solopreneur can do to get press. But let's go back to this question is, what are 3 tips you would have for influencers who are trying to get press for their brands, and tips that they can implement themselves, not working with an external publicist?
Yeah. So, I do this all the time with different entrepreneurs. So 3 tips that I would give you is, 1, figure out what makes you, if it's you as an individual, if you are your brand or your product or service, unique. So if you have a fashion line, if you have beauty line, you make lipsticks, you make nail polish, whatever, shoes, what makes you unique? Because there are hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of other people with the exact same business or sort of background. So what makes yours unique and different? Do you have a special color red? Is yours the best one on the market? You've done polls or surveys. It's the best one on the market. Is yours the least expensive on the market but the best value? What is it about your brand, your service that makes you unique? So that's the first step. Like, if you can't answer that question, you shouldn't be reaching out to media, like, honestly. Second, be focused and take the time to research media that would actually be interested in your story. And so I always say you don't want to just spray and pray. You don't want to just send out an email to hundreds of media or hundreds of publicists, or sorry, not publicists, press or journalists, and just hope that someone picks something up. Actually be focused, pick 5 or 10, actually research them and look at the type of stories that they write about, and figure out if they would be interested in your unique story, your unique angle. And then the third thing I would say, so after you've done your research, you've looked into, 5 or 10 media. And again, when I say look into, I mean, literally go to a website. Literally, if you want to be in, everyone wants to be in Vogue when they're in fashion. Don't tell me you want to be in Vogue if you've never picked up the magazine and read what they write about. So pick that up and see what they write about. So that's what I mean when I say research. Actually read it. Actually go on the site. Actually look at the shows. But then 3, I would say craft and refine your pitch for every one of those media people that you want to reach out to. So if you see a journalist or reporter has written about, leather jackets, motorcycle jackets, they wrote about it last week, and you have a motorcycle jacket, you probably shouldn't pitch them. They already wrote about it. They're probably not going to write about it again till the next time it becomes a trend. Like, if you know that, refine your pitch, craft it appropriately for the person that you're reaching out to, and do your homework. So those are to be my 3 tips.
So let's talk about this in real time, right? Maybe you can give us an example from your own brand and how you were able to utilize these 3 tips in helping yourself get publicity or your brand get publicity.
Yeah, of course. So as you know, I again, with my site, I'm always doing outreach for myself to get more coverage. And so a good example would be, let me see, what's the last thing? Oh, tech trends. So, I actually am a big fan of Good Day New York here in New York City. I noticed that on one of their shows, Where Did You Get That? They covered a lot of fashion, a lot of beauty, a lot of events, but I didn't see them covering any tech trends. But I had watched the show a number of times, saw that the host, Crystal Young, I saw that she would probably be interested in this type of story that I was thinking. And so I actually pitched her, a cool summer tech and I did this last June. So a cool summer tech. So it was all about things that would make you ready for summer and be really fun, because that's what she was all about being really fun. She's got a bubbly personality, and all the products that she would tend to choose was always about, how do you make life more fun? So I picked the, most fun tech products that I could think of that would be relevant to city dwellers. So I picked a cooler that had a built-in blender inside of it and a USB charger. I picked a underwater camera that allowed you to take photos and upload them to your cell phone or computer. I also I did a fun one with an Uber-like massage, where you can actually hit an app and they would send a masseuse to your house or to your barbecue for a party. So I put all these together and I sent it off to her, and she was like, love it, let's do it. And so it was me sort of watching the show for weeks, and I've been watching Good Day for years, but for weeks, to see the type of things that she might be interested in. And then because I cover tech on my site, pulling together and curating some products I thought she would love, and that would make sense for that audience. Again, I chose products that were great for city dwellers because it's a city news show, a lifestyle show. And then I chose products that I thought she would be really excited to have someone talk about on her segment. And so it really is sort of seeing those opportunities where you can, but again, doing your homework and crafting your pitch for those personalities or those journalists and reporters that they're going to be excited about. You want to make them excited. You want them to have you on or to be a source for them for news. And so the only way you can do that is if you sort of get in their head and their mindset. And the only way you can do that is if you watch what they do on TV or you read what they write in magazines and newspapers.
How did you find her contact information, and what did your actual pitch look like? Because sometimes you may have a good idea, but if you're not able to communicate it well, it can get lost in the sauce,
I agree 100%. So one thing I will say is you can get a lot of contacts just offline. So a good trick, because my background's in PR, I have access to a media database called Cision. It is one of the best databases in the world, and it has just about every reporter and journalist's contact information in there. The average consumer, the average business owner is not going to have that. It is not going to want to invest in that up front. I think a Cision seat is about $10,000 a year. So it's not something you're going to probably want to invest in. You can use something like Fiverr. There's a lot of PR people on Fiverr, as well as it used to be called Odesk, but I think it's called, I'll come back to that, but there's another company, but it used to be called Odesk. Actually, you still type in odesk.com, it will still come up and take you to the new site. But there are these sites that you can go on to get Publicist help to do sort of the grunt work for you. Upwork. Thank you, hon. Yes. Thank you. Upwork. It used to be Odesk, but it's now Upwork. But to do sort of the compiling of a list for you that you can do outreach for. So if you can't invest in like Cision yourself, you can have a publicist put a list together for you on one of those sites now. And so those are some ways to do it. You can also go online, and there's always a contact number, especially for TV stations and magazines. You can call the news desk and say, hey, can I have, this particular reporter's email? They'll either give you a general news box, or if you know their name because you've watched the show or you've read their byline, they may actually give you their email, and you can send a pitch that way. So as far as like getting the contact information, I'd say those be the best ways, like just calling the news desk and saying, hey, can I get this email, or can I have your news email to send it off to the newsroom? That's one good way to sort of start. And then as far as what do you say in a pitch, you want to hit it right off from the start and say why you're emailing them or calling them, because journalists are very, very busy. So 1 or 2 quick short lines about you and your background and why you might be an expert on this particular subject or a good source on this particular subject. Hey, my name is Charell Starr. I am actually a local lifestyle blogger and tech expert in the city. Here is my idea. Like cut to the chase. They don't have time to read 12 different paragraphs. And then actually bullet bullet out, what your idea is. Check trends for summer, like cool tech for summer. I'd love to feature a cooler with a blender. I'd love to feature, this new massage app company. I'd love to feature this new underwater camera, maybe add a link or two to those products, especially if you don't represent them. Like I don't represent any particular product. My brand is my site and myself. So when I'm pitching them, actually pitching them other people's products that I've researched and that I love. I'll include a link to the site so they can check it out as well. And then, when I sign off, I usually just say, let me know if you're interested in this story idea or another story idea. I've had some journalists and reporters respond to me like, hey, this is okay, but could you do this? And so you don't want to just close out your email, which is just let me know about this. It's like, if you're interested in something else, I can put it together for you and make your life a little easier. So please let me know if you have a different angle in mind. And so that's how you want to sign off. And then I would say you probably want to follow up in about anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks with that particular journalist if you can.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about following up because I think sometimes people forget to follow up. And sometimes journalists will read something and say, oh, I'll respond to it later. But then they get 200 emails and they honestly forget. So never forget to follow up because so many great opportunities can come from just sending a reminder email. But Charell, I wanted to ask you this is how does this change when you're pitching? You're pitching this for a live TV segment, right? How does it change when you're pitching something that's more editorial, like where you're pitching a reporter to write something about you or to do an interview with you?
I would say it doesn't change. Like the process doesn't change. I would say the process doesn't change. Again, it's always about what is unique. So what's unique about you? If you can't tell me what's unique about you, you probably shouldn't be pitching a story about you to the media or asking a publicist to pitch a story about you to the media. What is unique about you? And why should this reporter care to share it with all of their readers? Like that's what it drills down to, whether it's a product for live TV or whether it's a feature about you and all the good work you've done, with your business or you volunteer your time for these nonprofits, or you just have this really interesting background story. You grew up like me in foster care and now you help other foster youth, like whatever it is, what makes you unique and why should they care? You have to answer that before you pick up the phone, before you shoot an email off. Like you need to be able to answer that. Like it's exactly the same. What makes you unique?
Do you remember from your days working on the agency side, what one of the worst pitches was that you ever got and why?
On the agency side, I didn't get pitches. I sent pitches. When I first started out, I don't ever remember it because most likely the reporter just probably didn't get back to me. Mm-hmm. What I can say, though, is being on the other side of the fence now as a blogger and journalist, I do these on camera segments. I'm also, I write for different sites. And so I get a lot of pitches now from PR people. And some of them just make me shake my head. And like,
me too. I get them all the time, too.
Yes. And it's just like, why do you think I would want to write about this? Why would I tell my readers about this? Like you've lost your mind. And so I get a number of those bad pitches, just people not knowing what I write about, which goes back to doing your homework and research. Like they'll send me pitches about sales or pop-up shops. And I'm like, I don't cover either of those. Like that's not, how does a pop-up shop make my readers more successful? That's not what I cover. I just get these terrible pitches. They'll send me stuff that just I don't cover at all. The price of gas has gone down.
You get pitches for that?
Yes, girl. Yes, just terrible. So-and-so celebrity are in a feud. It's like that is not positive news. It's not the type of thing I cover. That's more for a gossip site. Like just stuff like that. And it's like you clearly did not do your homework before you did send, or you wouldn't have sent that to me. And so I shake my head every single day. I get about 200 pitches a day, and I am like, I think I'm very successful, of course, but I'm a sort of a what I consider a micro influencer. I get about 150,000 people who read my site every month, unique visitors. And so I'm not huge. I'm not like 1 million. I'm not 5 million or 10 million, like, BuzzFeed or a month or whatever. But like I get about 200 pitches a day. And honestly, I'd say out of, 1,000 pitches I might get a week, maybe one of them is relevant to me. So when you think about these big outlets that people want to be in, you want to be in Vogue, you want to be in People, you want to be in Forbes, I get 200 pitches a day. They must be getting at least 1,000, 1,500 pitches a day, and most of them are crap. So again, getting back to what makes you unique, why should the reporter, the journalist, the producer for a news show care? You have to answer that question. And then after you answer that question, what angle are you going to send to them? My tone for my site is very lighthearted. It's very fun. It's very, intimate and personal. But that's not the tone of a Forbes, of a Business Week, or even a Vogue. So you have to do your research before you send that off, because you get less than 10 seconds. Most of these pitches, I don't look past the subject line. And so I know they don't either.
Oh my gosh, when you said 200 questions, I wish this was a video interview, because if you saw my face when you said 200 pitches, I thought my little 5 was a lot. And I'm just like, wow, like that. And you said out of 1,000 for the week, you probably only have one relevant. Like, why do you think that there's so many irrelevant pitches circulating the world, like, or circulating the email systems of our influencers today? Like, why is that?
I think because people aren't doing what you're doing right now and actually educating. And, honestly, to be fair, it's not business owners who are sending me these pitches. Like, they're true, PR people, and they have at PR.com or whatever. They have like PR emails that I'm seeing. So I assume they've gone to school for this or have been trained in this, but I don't think they've really been trained. I think they get into sometimes these agencies and it's sort of sink or swim, and no one's actually trained them. And here's how you actually do research. You actually have to go pick up the magazine. If they don't sell it, where you are, you got to go to the neighborhood where it is and actually read it. You actually have to watch the shows that you are going to be pitching, and you have to talk to your client and figure out what actually is relevant. Your client may come at you and say, I really want you to talk about, the fact that I just released this new shoe. And if you are the publicist and you are the expert, and this shoe looks like every other shoe that is on the market at that particular moment, you need to have a heart-to-heart with your client and say, I don't think that is news. Tell me how the shoe is made. Is there a percentage of proceeds that goes to some sort of charity? Where did you come up with the idea for this shoe? It can't just, the pitch that you send to that, fashion reporter, that lifestyle editor can't just be, oh, we've got this new shoe, because it's going to get ignored. So what is the news there? And that's the key word, when we think about reporters, we think about journalists, news, the heart of that word is new. What do we have that's new or unique that's going to resonate with this particular journalist, this reporter, or this media person? You have to really think about it in those terms. And so I think you get all of these people who haven't been trained in that way, who haven't taken the time to do their homework and do their research and learn the proper steps before they kick something off.
Wow. And how important is relationship building when trying to get publicity for your brand? And maybe you can talk about how you have been able to actually build genuine relationships with the media.
Yeah, relationship building, it is so, so important. Whether you are reaching out to media, whether you are trying to get your, hair care product in the local beauty supply store, relationships are so important. And so, for me, I would say I've always been good. I think I'm a personable type of individual. If you put me in a room, I'm on chat with at least 5 or 6 people in there. Mm-hmm. And so that is something, that's a skill to have. If you are a chatty Cathy, if you like to find out about other people, that is a skill that's going to serve you well when you are building relationships. But for me, I would say a majority of the really good press that I've ever gotten, whether it be for brands that I've represented at agencies or for myself, has always been through a relationship, and usually one that I sowed the seed for years ago. So maybe someone I met, a journalist I might have met at a networking event. Maybe when we went out to coffee, I would try to help them out with story ideas that I wouldn't get credit for, but they might be looking for a source. If I'm working on a beauty brand, but they are looking for a source for a car, I might call one of my contacts and say, hey, can you chat with so-and-so? So things that people I sowed seeds with years before have come through years later to help me place a story. And when I say help me, they didn't do it because they just liked me. They listened because they liked me, they ran with the story because it was a good pitch for them, but they listened to me because they liked me, because they knew I didn't send them, terrible ideas. I didn't send them crap. I was always willing to help them. And so again, they didn't give me the story because they like Charell. They listened to Charell because they like Charell. They ran the story because it's a good story idea. If they don't like it, they don't run it.
That's such a good thing. Now, that's such a good note to keep in mind, because I think sometimes we think that even if we build relationships with people, that they owe us something, and no one owes you anything.
Girl, say it again.
No one owes you anything. No one. And I think that it's something that we have to get out of our heads, and I think that can especially be it can be confusing sometimes, especially if you see someone as your friend. And I think I've been in situations where people want favors, right? And it's like, listen, I like you, but I'm sorry, you're just probably not going to be the best person to be on the show at this point in time. And I think that you have to be sure of your brand, because at the end of the day, you don't want to confuse your audience by doing something or being part of something that may not be the right fit for you. You know what I mean?
I agree 100%. Girl, preach. Preach, girl, preach. No one owes you anything. And again, it's you are 100% right. You want to protect your brand, but you also want to make sure, like, before you ask that favor, what have you done to help this person along the lines? How have you gone out of your way to make this relationship a relationship? Relationships are two-way streets. So you get too many people who are like, oh, I'm out. Can I ask you for this? Oh, can I get this? Can you do this? It's like, what have you done in return? What have you invested in this other person for you to ask a favor? And just because you ask a favor doesn't mean that someone has to say yes to it.
Amen.
If it's not a fit, it's not a fit. Now I feel the favor is them listening to you.
So are you doing a Not Just a Girl in a Dress and your own lifestyle contributor stuff full time now?
No, so I do about 50% time of my site and then my contributing stuff. And the 50% time I still work with clients, but on the event side.
Okay. So what kind of events are you working on now?
Right now I'm working on an event for a nonprofit. It's going to happen in the summer, but it's more of like a conference business type event. So they're going to have breakout sessions. They're going to have leadership workshops. And so it's more of a conference for them. So I'm helping them put that on.
Okay. And I'm asking you that because I know that you transitioned from working at a PR agency a few months ago, right? What do you think were some of the biggest lessons you learned about the world of PR by working at those agencies?
I learned, so much. I cut my teeth, working in agencies. And so you learn so much. You learn, you learn, if it ain't profitable, don't do it.
What do you mean by that?
And what I mean by that is, you get, even in agencies, you'd be surprised. A lot of people want a favor here, whether they be a client, who, is threatening to cut their budget. And so they want you to work, put 5 extra people on their account to help them out and do them a favor. It's like, if it's not profitable, don't do it. And so you learn lessons like that. And because you'll watch, your senior VPs actually, do the favor, and then the client pulls the account anyway. Or something else goes wrong somewhere else because now you've taken people off things that they should have been working on. And so, you've always got to be looking at your business holistically is one of the things I learned. And so that's not a pure PR lesson, but look, working in those agencies, the bottom line is important. And everyone should know that if you are running your business, if your business is you and you're your brand, if you want to be profitable, look at everything holistically. Don't be doing favors for people here and there. So that is just a universal life lesson. And it happens even for the big timers as well. These brands make it 100 million, companies make it 100 million. They learn this lesson again and again, over and over. So do with that what you will. But I'd also say on the PR side, it is about your relationships are everything. Absolutely everything. And so you might move around, like I moved around from agency to agency, as my career progressed. But my relationships, I moved with me. And, a contact that I might have had who at the time, 3 or 4 years prior was reporting on spirits might sort of change their career too. too, and now be working on fashion. So as you move and grow, your contacts are moving and growing, and those relationships should be growing along with it. Don't ever just sort of drop a contact because you move on. Make sure you're staying in touch, make sure you're still being helpful where you can be, because 5 years later, they might be the contact you need to get to. And if you haven't chatted with them in 5 years, like, you got to start all over again. So I will say, like, don't let your relationships die out. And that's like any relationship. Like, don't just look at people at what they can do for you right now. How can you keep this relationship going and growing through the years? Those are always the best relationships. Watching your bottom line. And, I'd also say, learning how to manage your time and your well-being. Working in big agencies can be very stressful. I think at one point I had about 9 different brands that I worked on in one of the larger agencies I worked for. And that is really stressful. I used to spend 180 days on the road. And so I was never home. And so you have to make sure you're taking care of your well-being and taking the time to decompress, taking the time that you need so that you can maintain your health. And that's true in your personal business as well. Sometimes we want to go, and then we burn ourselves out. Make sure that you take the time that you need to decompress, to look after your personal wellness, so that you can take yourself to the next level, whether that be in an agency and growing yourself, or whether that be in your business and just taking it, expanding and growing as you should.
Are there any non-traditional types of PR that you think a lot of small business owners, lifestyle entrepreneurs, creative people aren't really tapping into? So non-traditional PR is become so much these days. But what I will say is, social media. I think creatives are tapping into social media, but I think they could be doing more with it. Like, use that same creativity that you bring to your business to social media. It's a great way, not necessarily to get in front of journalists and reporters, but definitely to get in front of bloggers and influencers, and then of course your customer base. You can build your own community. And that's sort of where PR has sort of migrated to, or where we've migrated to as a society. The media used to be the gatekeepers to get to your audience, to readers, to customers. They used to be the gatekeepers. So if I wanted, 100,000 people to find out that I just launched, a new lipstick, I would have to figure out a unique angle and go to a media person, one individual, and then hope that they would write about it and share it with their, 100,000 readers. Now I can come up with a unique story in a creative way and post it and share it with 100,000 people myself. So, as you're thinking about leveraging social media, and as you're thinking about how can I do PR, know that social media can be a part of that and actually take you directly to those people who you need to know about your product or services. So are you talking about a brand building up their own social media account or working with influencers?
I'm talking about building up your own social media account.
Okay.
Actually, if you are launching a new shoe, a new hair care line, if you've already launched it, making sure that you are building up your own community around that. So building up your Facebook page, actually letting people, using it as a way to communicate with your customers. If they have a question about a product, making sure you respond to them, making sure that you are really investing in that community, keeping them entertained, keeping them updated, keeping them informed. I think working with influencers can be a part of that, and should possibly be a part of that once you get to that point. I think, and I know a lot of influencers. First of all, let's define what an influencer is. Before we get deep into that. So an influencer in our world, in the PR and sort of writing and blogging world, is someone who truly has influence, usually over a community that they've built. So if you think of like bloggers, they've built a community of readers around who follow them and read what they write about. If you think about a celebrity like Beyonce, she's an influencer because she's a singer and she has this community of fans who are behind her and listen to what she says and buy her albums. And so that's sort of how we define influence. You can be an influencer too. Your local politician is an influencer. They're people who listen to what they have to say, who follow them. And so those would be influencers. When we're talking about influencers as far as like PR, what we tend to be talking about are either bloggers journalists, or celebrities. Those tend to be the influencers we're talking about. You might look at community leaders as well, depending on the type of brand you're working on, but those tend to be the type of influencers. When it comes to, reaching out to them or doing an influencer partnership, there's usually like two ways to do that. There is what we called earned, where again, it's you doing your homework, figuring out what the unique angle is, figuring out what these influencers find interesting, and reaching out to them and pitching them and saying, hey, here's why I think this would work for you as a story or as a post, if it's a social influencer. And I'd love to work with you on that or send you product for that. So earned, like you have not paid any money to work with that influencer. You sent them something. If they like it, they'll write about it. They'll post about it. They'll do a YouTube video about it if they like it. But then there's also paid partnerships, which are kind of like ads. You are paying an influencer to talk about your product or your service. You are literally giving them money, and they are going to talk about it. And so it's what we called a sponsored content. Mm-hmm. And it's because money has exchanged hands, and the influencer by law, according to the FTC, is also supposed to disclose that they have received compensation for sharing their thoughts on this particular product. And so those are usually the two ways, not usually, those are the two ways to really work with influencers. Either you're paying them to be a part of your program, or you're not paying them and you are pitching them as you would a reporter or journalist.
What's the best way, if you're a brand, would you say go the earned or paid route? Which one?
Honestly, it's probably going to be a combination. I think as go the earn route as long as you can, and as long as it's giving you value, hands down. There are going to be some brands out there that can go earned a lot longer because they built such a good community around them, because their product is the best product on the market. Because people love it naturally, and so they don't necessarily need to jump into paid in order to get people to pay attention or try their product for the first time. But I think it's probably, for most brands, it's probably going to be a combination of both, of doing the earned and doing some of the paid, and making sure, but what I would say the key is making sure it's giving you value. The point of doing that, either the earned or the paid, again, is for awareness usually. It's usually not for sales. It's to get people talking about your product. It's to get people it's to get people to notice your product and be aware of your product. And so as long as that awareness is moving the needle, and what you're doing is moving the needle, you want to do more of that.
And very quickly, because there might be some people who are listening who are influencers themselves, what tips would you have for influencers on the other side trying to work with brand, whether it be through paid or earned channels?
I would say with influencers, is because I work as an influencer too through my site, making sure that you aren't afraid to be honest with a brand about what will work for your audience. Sometimes brands come at you, especially if it's paid, and they're like, oh, we want you to post this with this type of messaging. And in your heart of hearts, you know what?
That ain't going to work.
That ain't going to work. My reader does not care about that. She's not trying to see that type of video. She's going to click off immediately. If you know that, be honest with them. And I know they don't want to lose that potential piece of business or be difficult, but you also want the brand to be able to get value from working with you. So if you know, hey, I would never use this type of language with my particular follower, my particular reader, here's how I would say this. How about I rewrite this for you and send it to you and you can review it? Especially if it's paid, because remember, paid, the brand should have approval. They're paying you. So I would definitely say, use your expertise, your community best. And then don't choose brands that don't fit your community. It's not all about the paycheck. Like, don't be short-sighted and, work with a million different brands and none of them are a good fit for you. Pick and choose the brands that make sense for your readership, for your followers, for your viewers, what have you, so that you are always authentic to your brand.
And you know what I want to add there, because I suffered from this. I'm going to be honest with you guys. So back when I first graduated, I graduated from Princeton in 2013. I wanted to be,
go get it, girl.
I wanted to be a beauty blogger, right? I was like, I'm going to be a beauty blogger. So I was really good at pitching brands, and I got all these products, right? And then I realized I don't actually want to write about any of this stuff. I just wanted the free stuff, right? So my beauty blogging days did not really last that long, because I think sometimes as an influencer, you really have to be honest with yourself about why are you trying to work with a brand? And if it's only to get free stuff, then maybe that's not the type of, way that you should partner with the brand. Do you get what I'm saying? Because I think there's a lot of people out there who are only doing it to get free stuff, and it's just like, no, it's not fair to your community, because they really want to hear from you. But if you're not writing about any of the stuff that you're getting because you only want to get it to use it for your personal advantage, then hey.
Yeah, and here's the thing. None of these things, I feel like, yes, there's certain products I will accept because I want to write about them. But no product, and I get some good products, especially on the tech side, but none of them are worth me getting it just to get it. I'm like, the time that I have to do the research to figure out how they work, especially on the tech side, to compare it to other products out there so I can decide how I'm going to tell my readers about this particular product, and to ensure that it makes sense for my readers. Just because I read online or on the brand's press page that it does X, Y, and Z, I've got to test all that out. I invest a lot of time in every single product that I put on my site, and so to just get it just to get it, it's like it's a waste of everyone's time. And honestly, a lipstick, a shoe, a dress, it's not worth it. And you're probably burning bridges taking all these free products from brands that you're not writing about. So I would say make sure that if you are thinking you want to write about it, figure out how much time it takes you actually to do a post, to do a video blog. Look at if it's even worth it for your time as far as just actual cost, and then making sure you're not burning bridges. I never take product unless I know I can write about them. And then I tell brands it's usually going to be about 4 to 6 weeks probably before I get to your product.
Yeah, and I think what that also made me remember is the idea of just figuring out what you like about beauty. Because I realized that I didn't really like the product so much, but I like talking to the brand behind the product. Do you get what I'm saying? So
yes.
That's why when you were writing for Madame Noir, that's how I started working with Madame Noir on their business pages. I would interview the people behind the brands of the products, and if they wanted, they would send me something as a thank you or here's something to try, and I would feel more genuine talking about the product in that way, because it wasn't tied to me giving a review of it and having to do a whole tutorial. So my whole approach to it changed, but it started from, okay, I want to be a beauty blogger, but then I'm like, no, wait, I really don't want to. I just like talking about the brand itself and talking to the people behind the brand.
And you found your voice. You found what your, unique angle, unique interest was, and your unique connection and way to chat with these people. And so, that was a wonderful progression for you to figure out. And sometimes you have to figure it out the hard way. Like, oh man, I got like 40 products in my house and I don't want to write about none of them. Like, sometimes I guess you have to figure it out the hard way and get to, everyone takes different paths, but as long as you get there and figure out what it is you love about this, blogging is not something I recommend to anyone unless you love writing. And so you're going to be taking time to figure out your unique angle, just like any other business. Like, you might love fashion, but maybe you're not a designer. Maybe you are, the one, figuring out the sales. Maybe you'll do some of the pitch calls and decide you love PR. Maybe you should be doing PR for other brands. So sometimes it's just a different path to get to where you need to be.
What are some challenges that you're facing now with the Charell Star brand, and how are you working through them?
I would say it's the challenge of, how do you sort of take on more? And as you sort of become more and more successful or become more and more recognized, it's just how do you take on more without burning out? When you are an individual and you are the brand, you take on so much. And so it's about figuring out that balance. And I think I've been doing a pretty good job of it, of saying no where I feel I need to say no. Like if in my gut, if you ask me, hey, Charell, can you come and speak at this event? I do a gut check. first and foremost. Before I even look at my calendar and like, ooh, can I take that on this week or, next week or whatever it is, and do that gut check to make sure I'm not taking on too much. I'm not over promising. I'm not overextending myself. Same with interviews. You might get an interview request, which is really great and really great publicity, but can you take it on this week? Maybe you have to go back to a reporter or journalist and say, hey, I would love to do it. Can we do it in 2 weeks? So just making sure that you are, especially for me, just making sure that I'm always keeping that balance there is sort of a challenge, but it's a good challenge to have. And I'm just learning the proper balance of maintaining it all.
Mm-hmm. And what keeps you going, Charell, on those days when you just feel like giving up?
I think, what's that quote? The days you feel like quitting, remember why you started. When you just feel tapped out, you just have to remember, what is it about this that you love and why did you start doing it? And, I think that's true for any business. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to step out on your own, it is going to get hard. It is going to get rough. You're going to be up really late nights. One day you're going to be up till 5 a.m. and just, you can't even think straight. And you're going to be like, why am I doing this? And you have to remember and you have to feel it and know it, that you're doing this because this is something you've always wanted to do, or something that you love to do, something you're very passionate about. If you are not passionate about your business, if it doesn't make you smile when you wake up in the morning, the thought that you are running this business and you're going to try to take this as far as you can go, you probably shouldn't be in business for yourself.
That's a great way to transition to our lightning round, Charell.
Yeah.
So this part of our interview, I'm going to give you a prompt, and I want you to tell me the first word that comes to mind. And remember, we're sticking with our whole dreams and drive metaphor, okay?
Okay.
The first word is park.
Probably break.
Okay. Reverse.
Drama.
Neutral.
Probably a pause.
And last but not least, drive.
Definitely fun, having fun.
And if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success. So, Charell, tell me 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road.
Before you hit the road, you have got to have passion. I cannot say that enough. You need to have passion. You also probably need to have great hustle. Again, you're going to have a bunch of balls up in the air at any given moment, so you need to be able to hustle and make things happen. And then I'd probably say, for my end, more than anything, a killer network and a squad. You need those people around you, behind you. If you don't have them, invest some time in building them. Because that is what's really going to get you to the next step.
Love it, love it, love it. So you said you need to have passion, hustle, and a good network and a killer squad, right?
Yeah. You can use the network and squad interchangeably, but those people around you, yes, you got to have them.
Well, thank you so much, Charell. Can you tell our dream drivers where they can find you online?
Yeah, dream drivers, feel free to check out my website, notjustagirlinadress.com. You can also find me on social, on Twitter and Instagram at Charell Star, and at Facebook at Not Just a Girl in a Dress.
How many dresses do you have? Because I was looking on your site and you're like, you don't want to admit it, but can you give us an estimated guess?
Over 100. The last count, and that count was a couple of years ago, and I've added quite a few.
Ooh, I love dresses, though. I just feel like they're so easy to wear, especially as a woman. Just put on a dress, put on some nice stockings, and you're good to go.
You're good to go. You put on a dress, you always look good. It's my cheat sheet.
It's funny because in the winter, I hardly ever wear pants, which is really weird. I'd rather wear like a really cute skirt and thick stockings. That's my go-to look. My pleated skirt and my thick patterned stockings. I just don't like pants sometimes.
Me either. I've always had a challenge with pants, so that's why dresses have always been a thing for me. But I agree. In the winter, it's when I do wear pants every once in a while, when, every full moon, people are just like, I cannot believe you're in pants right now. I'm just like, I know, I do own them, but they're not my preference.
Well, thank you so much, Charell. It has been a pleasure chatting with you today, and I hope our dream drivers were able to get as much much from this episode as I was. I know I have so many notes from press and publicity. You might see me on Vogue tomorrow. Sorry.
Well, you're going to make it to Vogue. I know it. And thank you so much for having me. And I hope everyone got awesome tips from this. I'm so happy to be on.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 73 with Charell. I hope that you guys enjoyed hearing her dream driving story as well as her personal keys to success. And if you haven't already grabbed that episode worksheet, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/free. That's dreamsanddrive.com/free to grab the episode worksheet there. I highlight all of the main tips that Charell brings out, and I also have sections for you to actually outline your own pitch. So definitely go and grab that resource. One thing that I want to say is thank you to everyone who has already filled out the Dreams and Drive listener survey. I'm closing it on April 15th, and I want to make sure I get as much responses as possible. So if you want to give feedback on the episode, share a little bit more about yourself, go to dreamsanddrive.com/survey. That's dreamsanddrive.com/survey, and you can fill out all your information there. And on April 15th, what I'm going to do is I'm going to randomly select 5 people who filled out the survey, and you guys will win gift cards. And you can choose in the survey whether you want a Starbucks, Amazon, or just a regular Visa card. So make sure you go and do that. If you haven't already subscribed to the Dreams and Drive channel wherever you're listening, whether that be iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever, hit that subscribe button. That allows you to be able to get updates when we have new episode releases. And I'm trying something new. I'm switching to Monday and Thursday as episode release days. I actually did that for 1 week already, and I'm finding that the listenership has increased. So if you like Monday and Thursday releases, let me know. Send me an email, raina@dreamsanddrive.com. I love hearing from you all. So one thing before we go that I want to start doing is I would love to start answering listener questions. So this is going to be our question of the week. And this is actually coming from the Dreams and Drive survey. So this question is coming from Vanessa. And Vanessa asks, did you struggle with getting your dream podcast started? If so, how did you overcome them and push yourselves to start and not look back? So Vanessa, yes, I actually did struggle with getting my podcast started just because I think I hesitated for so long. As some of you guys may know from episode 24 where Anuj Patel interviewed me, is I actually had the idea for the podcast for a while. And it wasn't until it wasn't until I interviewed this guy, Nate Hope-Sapple, who's actually a guest on this podcast, and he said, so why haven't you started? That was August of 2015, and I decided, you know what? January 1st, I am going to actually make this thing happen. And things just happened once I actually said, hey, I put a date on it. I actually ended up meeting episode 1 guest, David Thompson, who lives right down the street from me. We lived on the same street our entire lives, and we never knew each other. Turns out he also was a music engineer. He had his own story. We teamed up. He made the podcast intro for me. He was really instrumental in helping me in those beginning days, and I don't think I would have met him if I hadn't actually declared that, hey, I'm going to put a podcast out on this day. So it definitely was very, very hard. I didn't know how to podcast. I didn't have any background in podcasting. The only background I really had was I knew how to sound edit because when I was at Princeton, I was part of a dance company called Black Arts Dance Company, and I used to do a lot of mixes, so I had learned how to use GarageBand already. But I found online resources. I asked people who I knew had already done podcasts a little bit of tips that I could use. And you know what? I just got started. I think the biggest struggle for a lot of us is just getting started. And I knew that I was tired of doing interviews and just transcribing them and writing them. I had been doing that on my blog, and I just knew that I was tired of it. Podcasting was going to be a way for me to really step out of my shell and put my voice out there, which I had been so scared to do before or nervous. So yeah, I think the number one tip that I would have for anyone who's struggling to get their dream started is to be real with yourself about what it is that you want and how bad do you want it. Because if you really want it bad enough, and if you're tired of just thinking about this dream and not making it happen, there'll come a point where you'll just get started. You just have to do one thing to put yourself into motion, and then you'll just start rolling. So if you are stuck, think about one small thing that you have to do to put yourself in motion, and then things can start going from there. So yeah, Vanessa, thank you so much for asking that question. And I'm going to start doing more live question and answers. So if you have a question that you want to ask me, just email me, Raina@dreamsanddrive.com, and I will be collecting all those questions, and your question might end up on the next episode of Dreams and Drive. As always, guys, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we're going to chat again in episode 74. That episode is also going to be part of our Driver's Ed series, so stay tuned.